Hi everyone, Ruby here with another art lesson from the garden. Today we're going to be focusing on native animals or animals that live in our area. One reason we're focusing on these animals today is that the Community Association of Big Sur is doing a campaign to spread awareness about fire prevention. As you know, we had a 100,000 acre fire here this year, and that not only affects humans, it affects animals as well. So many of these animals that we're going to be looking at today lost their homes and lost their habitat. So we want to help spread awareness to save these animals and protect our area. So we're going to be looking at different pictures of animals, and we're trying to take these photos and transfer them onto our paper to help us get an idea of what these animals look like. So here in this photo we see a little fawn or a baby deer, and this fawn is kind of curled up and resting in the grass. So I thought this was a really beautiful picture, so we're going to use this as our reference or our information. So you can see that I've outlined the shapes, trying to find the shapes of the head or the body, the legs, the ears, all the different most important parts. And then I'm going to take those shapes and using an oil pastel, I'm going to try to put those on my paper. So if I want to fit the whole animal on my paper, I see that the head can't be too big. And it's shaped kind of like a light bulb, and it's pointing downwards. So I'm going to start off with that kind of shape. And then from there, I see the back of his body kind of goes over almost in a straight line. And it leads to his leg. And his leg kind of goes up like a little hill and then comes down here. And it swoops around to the long leg that's curled under his nose. So I'm starting with big things first, like we usually do, and trying to figure out what they really look like. I see his elbows kind of curled and he's got a little knee in front of that other leg. And then I don't see his other two legs, they're tucked underneath him. I see that his ears are really big and they're kind of almost like oval shapes. And one is a little bit bigger, this one's a little bit bigger than this one, which is pointed over to the side. So I can see that there's a little space on his head in between where these ears are, and one kind of goes diagonally and the other one goes up and then over. So I'm really looking at the shapes to try to figure out what I see in front of me. And I only see one eye because the other one is kind of hiding over here. He's in profile, and it looks like an almond shape or like a football shape, and it's kind of pointing downward. Then his nose is almost like a little heart shape at the end of his face here, his muzzle. So I started out drawing pretty lightly with my oil pastel so that I could make changes, like sketching lines. And as I get more familiar with my photo and the information, I can look for smaller shapes and look for ways to revise and make my sketch even better. So I'm kind of going over these shapes. And I'm using green, which is not the color that this deer would actually be, but that's okay. This is an art picture, not necessarily a science picture. So it's okay if my deer is all kinds of crazy colors. So again, I'm working on my sketch, trying to fill in the shapes that I see. I noticed that his hoof in the back has kind of two triangular shapes to it. So that's something that I'm refining and making more realistic as I'm going along. I also see it's got kind of some markings, like this part's a little bit darker. That's like kind of its own shape on its face. Okay, so I started out thinking about big things first. Now I'm going to think about the smaller things. So I noticed that he's got some really cool spots on his back, little fawn. These beautiful little white spots. And on his back legs too. You can kind of find those. I also noticed that his body is covered in fur. So this could be kind of a fun thing to add too. And I'm using a different color so that that will kind of stand out. I'm giving it kind of a pattern of lines all over its body to give the idea of fur. Right now my deer is kind of floating on a boring white background, so I'm going to start thinking as I'm working about, where do I want this deer to be? And it's hard to see in this photo, but I think that a deer usually has dark pupils, or the centers of their eyes. So I could make the eye a little bit darker, and the nose might be a little bit darker as well. And the center of his ears is kind of in shadow, or the fuzzy part of his ear is kind of in shadow. I also notice there's a little bit of dark fur or shadow underneath its neck. So I'm looking at the photo and adding some details, but I'm making it my own beautiful art piece. Kind of like the fuzz on his ears too. So now I want to think about where this deer could be. I notice that he's lying in long grass, so maybe I can add some long shapes for grass, long blades of grass. Give it a nice bed of straw to sit on. I can also think about the things I love about this area, maybe some wildflowers. So I could start to put in some grasses or some shapes for wildflowers. Maybe some orange poppies would be in there. Or maybe even some purple lupins. So I'm not shading things in too much yet because I'm going to show you later how you can do that with paint. So I'm really just thinking first about where this animal is going to be and just giving it some shapes and lines and patterns to live all around it. All right, have fun with this and I'll show you the next part later on.